Okay, science, we're going to talk a little bit about capturing your insects and making your collection, okay? Um, I think it's a little, I couldn't figure out how to do this just by notes, so I thought I would come in and I wanted to check on a couple things anyway, and so I thought I would just make a quick video for you. Maybe it'll get you a little closer here. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is that you guys are going to make a collection. Usually I have you do this in partners, but that's going to be a little tough. So with partners, you have to get 20 insects. So by yourself, you're going to have to get 10 insects. So your collection is going to be 10 insects. It has to represent at least 4 different orders. On Friday, I gave you 5 different orders of insects, but you know that there are something like 29 different orders. So there's plenty of orders. Basically, I'm just trying by this to get you not just to do all of one thing. I don't want 10 different ants or 10 different flies. I want you to get something from the Diptera if you can, get something from the Hymenoptera, something from the Coleoptera. I mean, really, I don't care what order, but at least 4 different orders, okay? So 10 insects, 4 different orders. You're going to need to get a box. Your box is going to have to be, how do I say this? It can't be too shallow so that when you put you probably want to have a top on it, although you guys are at home, so if you don't want a top, that's fine, okay? Sometimes the insects get a little stinky, and so it's nice to have a top on there. If your parents don't care, I don't care. But you want it to be deep enough so that when you put your insects in there, you're going to have like a layer of, like foam board would be perfect. Styrofoam works. Cardboard could even work. But you're going to want something to put your pins in. And so then your pinned insect will go in there, and then you'll have your insect, and you want enough room up here, for the top of the pin and then for your top to go on without breaking the insect. So it can't be too shallow. You also don't want it too deep. You don't want your insect way down here and you got a top on it like that. That's kind of crazy. Shoe boxes, I think, are a little too deep, but you can take the shoe box and you can cut it down just a little bit and make it, just cut it all the way around the end. The lid will still fit on there, and that would be perfect. Or even better is like if you go to a fancy place for clothes, Mia, you probably know. I don't really know, but like a garment box, they're about that thick probably. And, they're just a little square box, and they got a nice lid on there already. That would be perfect. You wood shop people, you can make your own box. So the first thing you're going to have to find is a proper box. You're going to put a layer of foam board in the bottom there. When you collect your insects, the problem with this whole distance learning thing is you guys are not going to get to be able to use my nets. Now, you may have a net of your own. That's fine, but you don't need a net. To catch 10 insects, it should be about as easy as falling off a log. It really shouldn't be that hard. Take a jar, go out, look around. The biggest mistake people make when they first start collecting insects is they charge out and they're looking like up here. It's like that, I think I told you this joke before. There's a guy walking with a blonde girl, and he goes, "Oh, look, a dead bird." And she goes, "Where?" So you're not looking up. Okay, you got to start narrowing your focus. When you're looking for insects, you're looking usually down. You're looking like on the sides of warm rockery or walls or things like that. But you're not looking straight out in front of you, just in this area of air. That's really not going to be the place you're going to find your insects. What I love to do is I go to a nice hiking spot. I've done it at Lincoln Park, where I just go sit up against a tree and just let yourself just watch nature for a little while, and you'll start noticing a lot of things as you stop walking. You kind of scare things, but then as you sit, things will come back into that area, and you'll start noticing, little animals or insects flying around, and you'll start seeing things. And then for me, which I just collect butterflies, I'm just going to wait for butterflies to fly through or land, and then I'm going to catch those. But you guys will see lots more things if you just learn to kind of settle down, be still, and relax. You're probably not going to catch them on the wing. They're flying around. You're with your jar trying to catch them. That's probably not going to work so well. Let them land. Just watch where they go. They will land. Come up with your jar. Just get them in the jar. And then you're going to pop them in the freezer overnight. That's the way you kill them. I don't want you to leave them in the jar for weeks until they suffocate, okay? I understand that we're killing something, but we're not going to do it in a way that's torturing the insect. I think it's something like 1 out of every 6 living things or 7 living things is an insect. They are numerous. There are lots of them. We are not hurting the insect population by collecting, a 10 insect collection. So if you have big moral reservations about it, I guess you can talk to me about it, but it's really not, you're not cutting short their lifespan very much. Insects live usually on the order of days, not years, okay? And they're not thinking deep thoughts like, oh gosh, I'll never go back and see my family again, or I'll never finish college now. They're just, you're snuffing out a life, but it's, just not much of a life, and there's not much even there, okay? I really don't think it's a big moral problem. You're not going to kill more than one of the same kind of insect, though, if I didn't say that. You only catch one of, so you can have 2 ladybugs, but they can't be the same species of ladybug. And the way you tell the different species is the number of spots they have on the back. So some ladybugs will have just 2 spots. You can catch one of those, and you can catch another one with 5 spots, but don't kill 2 of the same exact ladybug. Same with, ants or flies or things that are really numerous that you'll see a lot of them. Don't just catch a bunch of them and kill them all. You only want one of those things. All right, so you'll catch your insect, you'll pop them in the freezer overnight, they will just fall asleep and just never wake up. It's not a torturous death. Once they're dead, you are going to pin them. And pinning is going to take a little bit of, it takes a little practice, I have to say. For most insects, we are pinning them right through the thorax, okay? The way you can tell their thorax is that's where the wings attach. It's also, if you flip them over, it's also where all their legs attach. So you're going to pin them through the thorax, which is, remember, insects have head, thorax, abdomen. So most insects, that's where you're going to pin them, right through the center, right between the wings, basically. The only 2 that we don't do that on is Hemiptera, which, if you remember, those are the true bugs. Things like stink bugs are Hemiptera. And Hemiptera will have their head, their thorax, and their abdomen, and their wings cross over, and they make this little triangle on their abdomen. For Hemiptera, you pin them right through the middle of the triangle. And then the only other one that's a little weird are Coleoptera, which, if you remember, I hope, these are beetles. Coleoptera means helmet wing. They've got the 2 of their wings have been modified, so we call those wing covers now. They cover over their wings. So you find a ladybug, technical name, ladybird beetle. They will have their head, thorax, and then they'll have a line down the middle of their abdomen. That is the 2 wing covers. Beetles, we pin through their right hand wing cover. So, most things, thorax. Hemiptera, through the middle of the triangle on their abdomen. Coleoptera, through the right hand wing cover of their abdomen. And the last thing is if you catch something really small. You catch a tiny little gnat or a mosquito or a flea, you're not going to pin it because you'll just destroy it. So what you do with that is, let me show you from the side. You've got your pin. You are going to put what's called a triangle card here. And then there will be two other cards underneath that I'll tell you about in a second. But the triangle card will be here, and let me show you from the top. Your triangle card will of course be a triangle. You're going to pin it, you're going to put the pin through the center of it, and then out on the end you'll put just a little drop of glue, and you'll put your delicate little insect on top of that glue, and it will dry there. So it's almost like you're presenting it out. Okay, you're not pinning it, but you're gluing it to a card that is pinned, holding it out there so you can see it. The glue, if you use white Elmer's glue, it'll dry clear, and you'll be able to see your insect through there. Okay, try not to destroy them. You're getting your grading will be like this. You're going to get a point for your specimen, and you'll get a point for properly labeling and identifying your specimen. So if you catch an insect and you destroy half of it, you lose all the wings, or the head pops off or something like that, I wouldn't throw it away right away. But if you find a better one than that, you probably want to use that, because that'll be a better specimen than the one you had. Okay, so be gentle with them. Now look, I understand on some things, if you lose a leg, so you have 5 of the 6 legs or 4 of the 6 legs, some things it's not that big a deal. Legs are very delicate, same with the antenna. So try to be as gentle as you can, of course, but I'm not going to grade down for little tiny things like that. And I've been able to take a wing even and glue it back onto a butterfly, or a head for sure. Just put a little drop of glue, put the head back on there, it'll dry, you won't be able to tell. Okay, so that is pinning. Let's talk about these 2 tags. After you pin, so let's say this is your I don't know, your house fly right here. Okay, there's your house fly. Underneath here, you're going to have a top tag and you're going to have a bottom tag. They're going to be just like 3x5 cardstock, you know what I mean? That kind of thicker paper. And you're going to cut them in a little tiny square. Small. Okay? Not some big, enormous thing. Not a long rectangle. It's a little square. Just white paper. And the top tag, what the information is going to be there is you're going to have the location. And by that, usually we're talking about just the city, okay? So if you catch it here in your backyard, you can just say West Seattle. If you want to be more specific and say Lincoln Park, if you are at Lincoln Park, that's okay. You don't really need to say like the street address. That's probably too much. Now, sometimes you're going to be in a place, maybe let's say you're driving through Eastern Washington and you catch something and it's not a specific location exactly. You can say what county it is, but you got to at least tell where it's at, the location in general. Okay. Then you are going to have the date, and you are going to have the capturer. This does not have to be you. If your mom catches a June beetle and gives it to you, don't say you're the capturer, she's the capturer, and you write her name down there. Really, what a scientist is doing with a collection is they're getting specimens, and then later on, that information can be useful to study the specimen, to know where it was captured at, what date, who caught it. You might want to interview the person that caught it. Let's say you guys catch a gypsy moth, which are an invasive species that we're trying to kill, and somebody saw that you caught that. They would be very interested to talk to the person that caught it to find out exactly more information about it. So you don't want to put your name because it's your collection. I'm not grading down if other people catch your insects for you and then you use them. So write the capturer's name down. So that's the top tag, okay? So all that information would be printed neatly in ink and on a very small tag that you put on there, okay? The bottom tag is going to have the common name and the common name is, it varies depending on where you are. Common names are different. Sometimes people call, those large insects, they look like a mosquito, but just bigger, blown up. You'll see them during the summer. Some people will call those crane flies. Some people will call those mosquito hawks. They're different, depending on where you're at. There's lots of things like this. The thing that we call like a robin, the robin, the bird here in Washington. If you go to England, they call a totally different bird a robin. And we wouldn't even recognize what they're talking about. So the common name is just kind of depending on the location. And, for instance, I said a housefly, okay? So let's say common name would be housefly. Then you're going to put the scientific name. The scientific name does not depend on where you're at. Scientific names are the genus capitalized, followed by the species. And it gets underlined. That's how you write a scientific name. Last year when we did plants, I taught you the scientific name of some of the trees. Shore pine, okay, that's what we call it here, but it might not be that way around the world. But everywhere around the world, they see that type of tree and they call it a Pinus contorta. Pinus is the genus, the pines, and then the specific pine, is contorta. There are other kinds of pines. There's a western white pine, Pinus monticola. There's a ponderosa pine, Pinus ponderosa. There's lots of different kinds. So do you see how it works? The common name gets you, you're just talking to the local person, you would probably use the common name. But if you really want to talk science, you got to know the scientific name of them. So housefly would be Musca domestica. I will post a little cheat sheet that gives you some of the common names for some of these guys. Now that's what I would like. So here's my preference. Scientific name. But I have to say on some things it is really difficult. You almost have to be an expert to get to the scientific name. So on some things, like for instance, there are a lot of beetles. I told you it's the most numerous order. There are lots of beetles, and I can't always identify them all. So sometimes I'm going to only be able to I can't even figure out the genus or the species, but I can figure out the family. A large family of beetles is family Carabidae. It's the family of ground beetles. And so oftentimes I can't figure out this, then I will say just put family Carabidae. But then you'll have to write, for this you just have to underline these and everybody knows its scientific name. For this you would put family Carabidae if it was ground beetles. Okay? Or if it was stink bugs, it's family Pentatomiidae. I don't know the specific stink, but there's too many of them. Same with flies. Oh my gosh, flies are the worst because nobody wants to be an expert on flies. And so there's not any good books for identifying flies. So with flies, oftentimes I can't even get what family they are. So in that case, I'm just going to say put order, and we all know what order flies are in, right? They're in order Diptera. So this is my order of preference. I would rather have you give me the scientific name. But if we can't, then try to give me the family. If we can't do that, then at least you have to give me the order. You can't just leave the tag blank, okay? The cards go below the insect, and they're spaced out a little bit, and they're a little hard to read. You have to look at them from the side, um, but you should be able to see them. And if I had to, I could take the insect out and look at your card and everything else. But they should be legible and spaced out. So when you're arranging your box, it is totally fine for you guys to be creative with the outside of your box. I've had people, decorate it with artwork, insect artwork, or insect wrapping paper, or, just whatever kind of decoration you want. That's totally fine on the outside. But the inside of a scientific collection is not time to be creative. You are not, one time I had somebody arrange their insects in a spiral. That's the worst. No, don't do that. Okay? It should not look like that. Let me show you a really nice box. I'm going to have to just move this so you can see this, the board. Okay, is that, yeah. I think you can see that. If I can stop, maybe I'll just put it on a stool so you can. Okay, can you see that box? So this is a box that was back in 2014. This is Veronica Ahern and Haley Welliver, two outstanding students. And it's no surprise that they turned in a lovely looking box. Do you see everything is going the same direction? I want that. I want headings for what order you have. They have order Diptera here. And then all their flies and mosquitoes are underneath that. They have order Hymenoptera. All their bees, ants, and wasps are under that. They have Hemiptera, and they've got a couple Hemiptera here. Now, let's talk about butterflies. Just a sec. I'll talk about butterflies in a second. Coleoptera, they've got all their beetles. And do you notice the triangle cards, what they look like? And then Dermoptera, this is another order that we haven't talked about, but Dermoptera, they had an earwig, and so that's order Dermoptera. Okay, but do you get a sense of how I want this to look? Should be neat, legible, all the tags facing the same direction, not all crazy, headings, and grouped in different orders. Remember, they have, how many do they have? They've got 6 different orders. You only need to have 4 different orders. Okay, let's go back over here for a second and talk quickly about butterflies, okay? I collect butterflies. I love them the best. I think they're the most beautiful, but they also are the biggest pain to pin. With butterflies, here, I'm just going to cut you off just for a second. Okay, are you going to be able to see this? With butterflies, what happens is when they die, I think I told you one of the differences between butterflies and moths are when moths die, their wings fold around back. They call it the delta position, kind of like a fighter jet. They fold to their back. Or even when they come to rest, like on a flower or something, they will fold back. Butterflies, when they come to rest, their wings, I can't even show you, but they fold behind them and they fold up. When they die, they also fold up like that. That's no good for displaying because you can't see the wings. So with butterflies, what you have to do is after you kill them, you put them on what's called a spreading board. And I have a bunch of spreading boards, but that's not going to do you any good. Now, of course, you can make your own spreading board, and they're just, at an angle like this. And can you see here? I don't know if you can see this. I drew on it, what it would look like. What you do with this is you put your butterfly here and you spread the 4 wings. You kind of like fold them open. It's not that easy, and they will fight you. They kind of want to keep shut. You fold them open. See how I've drawn on this one here? You take like a little thin strip of paper and you press down. You don't pin the actual wing. You pin on each side of the wing. Like so, to keep it flat. And then you would do the other side. You would fold that down. Pin there. Pin there. And then what you do is you just leave this for a while, and something called rigor mortis happens. Rigor mortis happens with everybody. After you die, your muscles get tense. and you're no longer all floppy. The same thing happens with a butterfly. Their wings get spread, we call it. So you leave it on there for a couple, 3 days, and their wings will like stay in that position. Then when you take these pins off, here, let me get my collection and show you what it should look like. Okay, can you see these guys? But do you see how it ends up being spread? Now, some of them, like that moth, can you see it? That moth, those wings are kind of flopping down a little bit. But what they should look like is like this guy here, nice and spread out, or this guy, spread out, and they stay in that position. But you should be able to see all 4 wings and nice and big like that. I would recommend that you guys do not deal with butterflies. I'm not there to help you. It is going to be a pain. But if you want to try this, I'm sure there are YouTube videos that will show you how to do it in more detail. You're allowed to have a butterfly in your collection. It is just going to be hard. Okay? So anyway, there's plenty of other orders to do besides butterflies. Speaking of things I don't want you to do, let me just show you on the board here again. I do not want you to do bumblebees. Bumblebees are those big fuzzy ones that you see, usually yellow and black, sometimes orange and black. And they're bumblebees and honeybees. Let me show you the honeybee. Honeybees are kind of more tannish and black, and they're smaller than bumblebees. Anyway, both of these guys, their population is going through kind of a, they're having a hard time. There's a number of different things going on. There's viruses. There's these little mites that are preying on them. There's chemicals in our environment. And the honeybees and bumblebee populations are having like crashes. They call it a colony collapse disorder. And they don't know exactly why. They think it's a combination of those things. But let's just leave those guys alone, okay? They're struggling a little bit, and they're very important for us as far as pollination of different, fruits and vegetables that we grow. And so I don't want you to have any of those. Even if you find one dead, I won't take it, because it's impossible for me to tell if you really caught it dead or you actually, captured it. So they're just going to be banned. You can do any other kind of insect you want, though. And yeah, I think that's going to be, I'm going to stop here. And we will talk about pinning in another lesson. Okay. All right. Go out there and enjoy the good weather and catch some insects, okay?